Hello, welcome back to another science lesson by your science teacher today, Mr. Long. Now, we'll be going through the Science PSLE booklet 2023, and I'll be dividing it into two parts. This is part 1 on the life science from question 29 to question 34. Now, and then part 2, the physical science, will be in a separate video. If you have not done this paper yet, please stop watching this video, attempt the questions first before coming back to watch this. If you have done it and just want to refresh your memory or just want to do your corrections, get your green pen out and let's get started. Question 29, use a pencil to draw the life cycle of a mosquito using only words and arrows. So no drawing required and don't waste time drawing, just write words and use arrows. Make sure arrows are pointing in the correct direction. Egg to larva, larva to pupa, pupa to adult, adult to eggs again. Now state one characteristic of the adult mosquito that classifies it as an insect. Now, this characteristic has to be a definitive kind that no one can argue and say it could belong to something else. For example, if you wrote down it has a pair of antennae. Now, although it's true that mosquito is an insect have a pair of antennae, but there are also other organisms that also have a pair of antennae, like your snails or like crustaceans like crabs or your lobsters or your prawns. Don't you feel hungry now? All right, got to be definitive. You also cannot say mosquito lay eggs because there are other organisms like amphibians, reptiles, fish, birds and these also lay eggs. So you can say something like it has 6 legs, or it has 3 pairs of legs, or it has 3 body parts. Next, let's go on to the second part. John studied the effect of temperature on the life cycle of mosquitoes. His findings are as shown. Number of days to complete one life cycle. One life cycle refers to egg all the way to adult. There's one life cycle. And the temperature. So how do we read this kind of graph? As temperature increases, is it from 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50, this number becomes smaller and smaller. If it's, let's say, 20 days, this will be now 15 days, 10 days, 5 days. So explain how global warming will affect the life cycle of mosquitoes and the number of adult mosquitoes. Now, notice this is a 2-mark question. How do you know what to write for 2 marks? Well, the question told you. Life cycle of mosquito, number of adult mosquito. So, in other words, you need to know the demand of the question, the requirement of your answers. And by looking at the mark allocation and looking at the words in the question itself, you know clearly what you have to write. Let's look at part 1, life cycle of mosquito. How did global warming affect this? There's no mention of global warming here, but there's mention of temperature increase. So therefore, due to global warming, temperature will rise, right? The temperature rises and the number of days needed to complete one life cycle, I use the words here, don't be lazy, use all the words given. The number of days required to complete one life cycle shortens, or it can become fewer. What does that mean then? For the second part, regarding the number of adult mosquitoes, it means that the number of mosquitoes or number of adult mosquitoes will increase. Adult should be written here. Adult mosquitoes will increase. Next, the table shows the amount of blood transported per minute to some parts of the body when the person is resting and jogging. Now, amount of blood transported per minute in units. So when the person is resting, 900 units of blood goes to the leg and 1,200 units of blood goes to the digestive system. So quite clearly, more of the blood goes to the digestive system while the person is resting. But wait a minute, when the person is jogging, you notice a flood of blood, a lot more blood flows to the legs, the leg muscles, and much less blood goes to the digestive system. So explain why there's an increase in the amount of blood transported to the leg muscles when jogging. When you jog, you need to use more energy, right? And to generate that more energy, your cells in your leg muscles requires 2 things, more digested food and more oxygen. So these 2 has to be sent to your leg muscles. That's 1 mark. And the second 1 mark is because during this process where your cells undergo respiration, it will also give out this waste gas called carbon dioxide. So you need to get rid of the carbon dioxide. So more carbon dioxide is removed from the leg muscles. Second 1 mark. Now, how do you remember this? Think of what you want, what you need, and what you don't want, what you don't need. You want digested food, oxygen. You don't want carbon dioxide. Next, using the information given, explain how the absorption of digested food is affected during jogging. Now, absorption only happens at the small intestine of the digestive system, not at the mouth, gullet, stomach, or large intestine, or rectum, or anus. So during jogging, more blood was transported to the leg. How do I know? The question told me to use the information above. There, during jogging, more blood was transported to the leg muscles. And less blood went to the digestive system, you see? Less blood went to the digestive system. This first one mark is easy to get, right? It's just your evidence from the table. Just translate that, interpret that, and put it in words. Now, second part is explain. You've got to explain using your science concept. So what does it mean regarding the absorption of digested food? Well, if there's less blood in the digestive system, there will be less digested food that enters it. So less digested food can enter less blood. Or you can say there is less absorption of food or less absorption of digested food. It's better to have the word digested here, okay? Less absorption of digested food. The table shows, okay, this is a repeated one. A special dish can be used to find out how polluted water is. Polluted water has dirt in it, and dirt is opaque that will stop light from passing through. So if there's more dirt, it means that there will be less light that can pass through. The dish is tied to a rope and lowered into water until it could no longer be seen. You can see use the same dish to measure the depth at which it can no longer be seen in 3 different lakes. The results are shown here. So what's the variable that changed clearly is the 3 different lakes. Different lakes. We cannot say different position because it could be different positions in the same lake. But why were these results reliable? Now, what does reliable means? Reliable means you can depend on the result. You can trust it. You can say it with confidence. So this person you can see can say that Lake R, the depth at which you can no longer see this is about 345 to about 355 cm in depth. And that happens because she repeated once, twice, now 3 times. And it gets about the same number. Same thing for Lake S. She got about the same number. 750, 745, 755. She can say that with confidence for Lake T. She gets about the same number. Every time she does it, 580, 575, 585. So the answer is she repeated the experiment 3 times for each lake. And the results were similar each time. That's why she can trust the results. She can depend on them. And she can say the results were reliable. Now, based on UNC's result, identify the lake that was least polluted and explain why. Remember, I mentioned before, mark allocation, 2 marks. And there are 2 requirements here. First one is identify the correct lake. That's a simple one. Lake S is the least polluted. Why so? Now you explain using your science concept. Go to your evidence, C, E, and R. Evidence is go to the table. The depth at which the disk could no longer be seen, could no longer be seen, is the greatest. This is the greatest depth. So how do you explain that? Meaning light could pass through more of the water in Lake S than in Lakes R or T. Or you can say most light can pass through the water in Lake S than in Lakes R or T. Question 32. A scientist made the following observation of organism B, C, E, F, and G. And they are, you notice that I cannot write this B and C live in water in the food web, but I can understand B feeds on F. So B feeds on F. I cannot put E lives on land and water in the food web, but I can put in E eats both B and C. So E feeds on both B and C. Right, B and C feeds on F. So these 2 eats this F. Last one, G lives on land. I can't put this into the food web, but I know G feeds on E. G feeds on E. Now, organism E builds a nest in water for shelter. Now, you can go Google or go to YouTube and look for beaver, B-E-A-V-E-R. Now, this is a particular organism. Look for beaver videos produced by good companies like PBS or the National Geographic. And there are some nice short videos that explain how this beaver build their nest, and they even show you how it looks like inside. Now, using the food web in part A, which is here, and using the information above, which is from the diagram, suggests 2 advantages of the nest for the survival of E? Explain your answer. So the first part is you must state the two advantages of the nest. So advantage for survival. What does survival means? Survival means don't die. Survival means can reproduce. Survival means they can find lots of food and water. Now, let's recap your different factors that affect the survival of organisms. And these are like the availability of water, availability of food, access to good quality air, having light. Okay, maybe for an animal is not so important, but light is important for plants. Right temperature and other organisms, because these organisms may be its predators. First, notice that the entrance to the nest. Notice they give you these words. It's not for fun, okay? It's where to use it. Entrance to the nest, where is it? It's underwater. But what's the point? How is that useful? Let's take a look at the organism that feeds on it, G. Where does G live? G lives on land. Where does E live? E can live on land, but E can also live in water. And by building its nest in water, this makes it really hard for G to get to it. Right? So by putting an entrance to the nest underwater, predator G that lives on land cannot reach it. Simple as that. If the predator cannot get into the nest, then safe. They are safe inside. The second idea is nest lets E hide inside. Hide means out of sight. So G cannot see E. If you cannot see, of course, it will know it's there. It will not hunt for it. Now, give you some ideas. What are a few ways an organism can handle predators, can escape from them, or can prevent itself from being eaten. They can try to outrun them, run faster than a predator. They can try to hide from them, means out of sight. This is an example of hiding, out of sight. Okay. Next one, they can try to camouflage. That means in plain sight. You can look at, for example, a leaf insect or a stick insect, and you don't realize it's a stick insect or leaf insect because it just looks like its surroundings. This is not the camouflaging idea. They can protect themselves with a hard shell like tortoise or turtle. This is not the case. The beaver is covered with fur, it doesn't have hard shell. Go out of reach, for example, climb up the trees, fly away, swim away. That's not the case here either. It's hiding inside. So that's the concept behind the second answer. It hides inside, out of sight. Third one, organism P is made of one cell and it lives in a pond. Now, this organism has several parts: nucleus, cytoplasm, cell membrane. It looks like a cell, right? And it has this interesting thing called a chloroplast. But notice there's no cell wall, but it has chloroplast. Now, it says, which part of this cell enables it to make food? Only the chloroplast. That's a plant part. So chloroplast, you can also write down the answer chlorophyll, because chlorophyll is a substance that traps light to make food. Now, Fiona placed some pond water with organism P in a dish as shown in diagram 1. She cut 2 holes in a sheet of aluminum foil and covered the dish as shown in diagram 2. Now, aluminum is opaque, meaning if she were to put this dish under bright light, the part that's under the aluminum foil will be dark, except for these 2 holes where light can pass through. And therefore, you notice all these organism P gathered around these 2 spots where light can pass through. But wait a minute, isn't it a plant? No, there's no mention it is a plant. It's just an organism. And it has no cell wall. But it has this little tail at the back that maybe allows it to flap around and move. And that's why this thing can move. So what's the characteristic of living things that's shown? Now, what is the meaning of characteristic of living things? You learned that in primary 3. And you learned there are 4 characteristics of living things. They need air, food, and water. They respond to changes. They grow. They reproduce. And this organism, by moving to a different place, they are showing you the characteristic of they respond to changes. Now, what are some wrong answers? You can say P can move. That is not an acceptable answer. All right. For example, plant is a living thing. You don't talk about plants moving on its own. All right. Your robot cleaner at home can move on its own. That doesn't make it a living thing. So movement is not a characteristic of living things that we are using in our primary science syllabus. Suggest why organism P behaved as observed by Fiona. Now, why did it behave? Now, linked to its characteristic, it has chloroplast, right? It traps light to make food, correct? Therefore, it moves towards light. Why? Because it needs the light to make food. or it goes towards the light to photosynthesize. Last question before we take a break. So hang in there. Insect M lays an egg in the ovary of a flower of plant Y and rubs pollen grains on the stigma of the same flower. Now, I think this insect M is a wasp, and I think WASP, and I think this particular fruit is that of a fig, FIG. You go and Google and find out if that's true, right? Because you have eaten figs before, some of you, and maybe you didn't realize what we're actually eating inside. I won't gross you out here, but you can go find out. Now, the egg of insect M hatches in a developing ovary and the young feeds on the seeds of plant Y. Important information that will help you to answer the question later. And let's recap. Parts of a flower. Male has filament. The function is to hold the anther. A male part has an anther. The anther is to produce pollen grain. Here I have a typo. The female has the style. The style is meant to hold the stigma, not ovary. Stigma. And the stigma's job is to allow pollen grain to stick onto it, land on it. All right. And the ovary is the part that becomes a fruit after fertilization. The ovules is the part that will become seeds after fertilization, which is when the pollen grains land on the stigma. You'll grow a pollen tube down the style until it reaches the ovules and will fuse with the ovules. Now, which part of the flower did this fruit develop from? See, fruit developed from ovary. Explain how rubbing the pollen grains on the stigma of the flower benefits both plant and insect M. There's no need to talk about pollination. This is not about pollination because once the pollen lands on the stigma, pollination is really done. Now you're talking about something else. Rubbing pollen grains on the stigma of the flower allows two things to happen, two benefits. First, how does it benefit the plant? It allows fertilization to happen. Why is that important? That will help the plant to reproduce. Second thing, second one mark, is about how it benefits the insect. Well, the ovules will become seed, right? Remember we revised just now, ovules become seed. And why is that important? Because the young feeds on the seeds. So the ovules become seeds during fertilization, which become food for the young of insect M. And that ends part 1 of this video. Now, take a break. Before you watch part 2, we shall explain the physical science part. All the best in the preparation for your PSLE or for your prelims. Take care and goodbye.